That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Green Knight, the seventh film directed by David Lowery, which A24 is finally releasing in theaters July 30th, 2021.
What do I know from David?
I don't know that you've seen any of his stuff, but his third film was kind of a breakout in 2013, Ain't Them Body Saints, kind of a...
Ain't Them Body Saints?
Kind of a poetic, revisionist Western-ish.
Okay.
I really liked A Ghost Story. I remember talking to you about that film in 2017 with Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara, neither of whom you liked, so that's probably why you haven't watched it. He also did Pete's Dragon for Disney a couple years ago.
The children's book?
Yeah.
Oh.
And most recently, The Old Man and the Gun, which is Robert Redford's swan song.
You liked this movie.
I did like this film.
I didn't watch it because the guests weren't allowed at the screening.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's a film to talk about and to experience on the big screen. It is enigmatic and mysterious in interesting ways, but also frustrating.
Well, I was frustrated listening to you try to describe it to me, so I'm going to give like a very basic overview of the story, and then you can...
Okay.
Just to speed it up. It's set in like King Arthur's court.
Yep, it's based on a 14th century Middle English poem by Anonymous, but it's up there with Chaucer as kind of the most notable text from that time.
Okay, I wouldn't know. The Green Knight is this mythical figure.
And the poem is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Okay. The Green Knight is like this creature that you described as...
As visualized in this, it's like the Hulk dressed as Groot.
But in like a knight costume.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Green Knight shows up one night at at King Arthur's castle and interrupts like an event and says, I want to play a game.
Christmas,
or an event. Interrupts Christmas and says, I want to play a game. The game is, whomever can strike a blow against me, in a year, I'm going to strike the same blow on you. So obviously it's like, well, who the hell wants to play that game?
well,
But you're going to get into it, but I think these types of stories from back then were about symbolism.
it's a chivalric romance.
Okay, so the nephew of King Arthur, who's played by Dev Patel, he says, I'll do it.
Go in.
He says, I'll do it. So he goes and he chops off the Green Knight's head. So the Green Knight picks up his head and says, all right, girl, I'll see you in a year and a day.
Basically.
So in a year and a day minus 6 days, what's his name?
Gawain.
Spell it.
Gawain.
Gawain makes the 6-day trek to wherever the Green Knight stays.
The Green Chapel.
I hate when people ask, where do you stay at?
Okay.
You don't end sentences with prepositions, people. But anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So he goes to wherever the Green Knight stays at. And he has many adventures, and that's where all the chivalry and the romance happens. But that's not important to the basic game.
Not really any of that, but
right.
Okay.
Isn't that true?
Sure. There's no, keep going.
Well, whatever. It doesn't matter because the game is about, okay, so now he makes it to the Green Knight.
The Green Chapel.
Who's staying in the Green Chapel. And the Green Knight goes to strike his blow on Gawain, and the film ends. So we don't know for sure if he actually chopped his head off.
There's more details in there than that.
Well, there's a fantasy sequence where Gawain imagines himself running away, but he wouldn't do that because that wouldn't be honorable.
He'd be a deserter, yes.
So then we go back to reality, and the reality is he's about to be struck by the Green Knight, but we don't see it.
Right.
The end.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that like Beowulf and King Arthur, Le Morte d'Arthur, like all of these texts are, there are classes built around these texts about the meanings and things and the symbolism of them and what does the Green Knight actually represent. And I don't know that Lowery exactly provides these answers. He just does his own kind of weird, interesting thing with it. And at the press screening, they gave out new copies of the poem, translation that Lowery himself has an introduction in front of.
And you read the poem?
I did. I read it.
Which is long.
It's like 75 pages.
That's a long ass poem.
But it's not told. It's translated from Middle English, so it doesn't read. It reads like a story. It reads like an oral history, because that's basically what it was. It's survived. It wasn't even titled what it is until hundreds of years after it was put on paper anyway. So yeah, it's combining, of course, the themes of the poem, the beheading game, and the exchange of winnings game, and I think he makes interesting changes. Dev Patel, his mother is played by Sarita Choudhury, who's kind of, I guess, basically Morgana Le Fay, who is kind of the root cause of what's happening in the actual poem, but it's told in a different way here, who's kind of, she's a witch, and she is trying to help her son out become a notable knight. Like, she's kind of driving the magic of what's going on behind the scene here. And Dev Patel has other run-ins with characters that we don't see in the poem. Like, he is accosted by three characters, one played by Barry Keoghan, who rob him of his magical belt that is protecting him, that his mother gave him, and steal his horse. And then he has another incident where he's basically helps a ghost recover her own head. Lady Winifred, I believe is her name, until we get to the characters that are in the poem, a hunter, a lord, and his wife. And Alicia Vikander plays the lady, and also his girlfriend back home, who's also an added character in Lowery's edition. And the husband, the lord, played by Joel Edgerton, says, I'm going to go out and hunt whatever my winnings are. I'll give you my winnings, and whatever you happen to win in my court, you exchange that for me. And in the poem, it's an exchange of kisses because the wife's trying to seduce him. And so when the husband comes home, he has to kiss him. But his shame is that she gives him this belt in the poem, and he hides it. And he actually isn't killed in the poem, as he is in the film. So what Lowery's doing, which I find interesting, is in the sequence with the Green Knight at the end, he cowers and is made fun of, and he tries to back away, and we get like a dream sequence where he imagines his life flash before his eyes, where he goes back and becomes king, screws over his girlfriend, also played by Alicia Vikander, like basically steals her baby, marries somewhere else, gets old, loses his court in war, and of course, as time comes for us all, will die. So he takes off the belt as a sign of kind of he died then, or do all these terrible things and die later. Again, it's not exactly clear. I think visually and score, the ambience of it, it's a beautiful, weird little film. I think Dev Patel is kind of perfectly suited for this period, actually. However, if I had just dropped into this blind, I would have thought this was first a Robert Eggers film, who directed The Lighthouse and The Witch, or an Ari Aster film, who did Hereditary or Midsummer, because it has that tone, which are all, of course, A24, in the A24 stable. So I find that kind of interesting. But it was shot by Andrew Droz, Palermo, beautiful looking film. Again, the production design, I think, has a lot to do with it, by Jade Healy, who was the production designer on The Killing of a Sacred Deer and Marriage Story. And also the feeling of that Robert Eggers-ishness is Kate Dickie is Guinevere, who's in The Witch, and Ralph Ineson is the one behind all that makeup, who's the father in The Witch. He's the Green Knight. One of the lines of dialogue I wrote down is sorry, I think it's interesting.
No, I'm laughing because you have like an envelope for
marking the book. But David Lowery, because this was one of the lines I wrote down, because as the lady of the hunter, Vikander has this library, and she tells Gawain, they're tales I've heard, songs that have been sung to me. I write them down and don't tell anyone this. When I see room for improvements, I make them. Which is kind of arguably like a text like the Bible, or this passed down from centuries that people have been allowed to tinker with, and we don't know who or when or why. And basically that is the essence of adaptation, is the hubris of kind of taking something so classic and making it your own, which I believe he has done. I think it's a visual experience. Oh, and before the film, he spoke about 5 films that influenced it, and you can see them in the film. Coppola's Dracula. I think what he does with Vikander is very much Winona Ryder as Mina in the Dracula film, and also Willow I thought was interesting. You can see that in the production design very clearly, and The Dark Crystal. So yeah, I think that if you like challenging-ish art house cinema, I think The Green Knight was a lot of fun.
I don't know. I've listened to you describe it now twice, and I couldn't be like less interested. I don't know what it is, but yeah. I mean, what would you give it?
3.5 out of 5.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
I think you have to see it. It's an experience.
Anything else?
No.
Bye.
Bye.